Well, hello and welcome everyone. And I'm really excited today to be joined by the lovely Nina Lockwood. I met Nina quite recently and she invited me to be part of her podcast video series, and we talked all about creativity and my journey and my recovery from burnout and things like that. And I thought, wouldn't it be a wonderful idea if she came and spoke to all of you? Because Nina is a transformative coach. She is an author, speaker, and artist, and she shares the job of creativity, inner freedom, and genuine aliveness. And as you can see behind her, she has the most amazing studio, and it just looks so beautiful and just full of creativity. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to have a conversation about finding our creativity more? So I don't know, where are we going to start with this? Because I know it's going to be rich. But well, I come across a lot of people who say, I'm not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body, and would look at your studio and go, no, that's not me at all. So maybe we can start there. What are your views on that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm so glad we can have this conversation, because I think the more people realize that they are creative, the more things that we'll do without second guessing ourselves and really doubting what's possible for us. So if people think that creativity means being artistic, then yeah, that takes a lot of people out of the running, because most people that you talk to say, oh, as you just said, I can't paint, I can't write, I can't sing, I can't whatever, fill in the blank. But as we were talking before, creativity shows up everywhere. What clothes you put on in the morning, what you put in your coffee or your tea, what you make for lunch, what socks you decide to wear. It's all creative. It's all putting things together that may or may not have been put together before, and they have a different result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that so true? Isn't that so true? I think we do have such a narrow definition, don't we, of creativity. And
it's ironic, because how many articles do you see, whether it's for professional or personal development, that has the word creativity in it? And everybody's saying, yeah, that's right. Really good idea, really good. We need to be more creative. But me? No, I'm not creative. It's silly. We just don't notice that we're doing it to ourselves.
yeah, and I think as soon as we do, we kind of just shut that part of our whole system down, don't we? Because we're like almost saying to ourselves, oh, well, I don't need that. So we don't even look in that direction.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone is familiar with the story of how when kids are in kindergarten, in the early grades, who can sing? Everybody raises their hand. Who can dance? Who can make art? And then by the time they're in sixth grade, they've been talked out of it. So when people say they're not creative, it's actually more of a statement by the person who made it to them, their opinion, as opposed to that individual's creative potential.
That's really powerful, isn't it?
To notice that, yes. Yeah, and I think that if we knew and could keep in our minds that when somebody gives us an opinion about us, what we're capable of, what we're good at, it's just their opinion. It doesn't really have anything to do with us. But we take it as personal, especially when we're young. Oh, well, they're older and they know better, so it must be true. But to leave it at that is just such a waste of what we could do and how much fun we could have.
Absolutely. And we also take it as like a fixed statement, don't we? If somebody says that to you, we think, right, well, then that's it for like ever. And we don't take into account that their state of mind changes, and maybe the following day they might have said it in a different way, or maybe they not even think that at all. Maybe they were just having a bad day that day. We just don't know. And So we see in others that they have this fixed point of view that will never ever change.
Yes, that is such a really good point, because it's not only true about what we say about our so-called lack of creativity, but everything else as well. And when we have this has been my experience so much of the time, when we start questioning what people have told us or what we've believed for however many years it's been, we can really do so much more than what we thought we could. But when we realize that it's really what we've come to believe about ourselves that's the problem, or it's also the solution, because we can experiment with what we think about ourselves and then do more cool stuff.
Yeah. That's true, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's funny because that really points in the direction of how creative we really are.
Yeah.
Because we really just, look at some thinking and be really curious about that and what we believe about ourselves.
Yeah.
And fresh thought will come, and then all of a sudden our opinion of ourselves kind of changes a little bit. And
Yeah.
well, we've created a new version of ourselves then, haven't we, that we've believed. So I love that. I love looking and being curious about who we are. So if someone were to say, because I'm sure there'd be somebody who's watching this and going, yeah, but how do I be more creative? Because
Mm.
I'm not creative. Like, I know I'm not creative. And it's all right for you and Nina to say about creativity, because you're quite creative and she's clearly really creative. But how do I do creativity? How would you start to unlock somebody's creativity in that way?
That is a fabulous question. I have no idea how I'm going to answer it yet.
We'll get there, I'm sure, over the course of the conversation.
I think a good starting place, though, is to let go even a little bit of our fixed definition of what we can and can't do. Like, what if we were creative and we just didn't know it? So one of the easiest places to start is just to notice, I think, how we are creative in the course of a day. Maybe you're writing something, or maybe you've got a proposal due, or you're putting something on social media. How the ideas come to you and how you arrange them, how you edit them, how you present them, that's all a creative act, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because we're always bringing something into being, aren't we, that was never there before.
Right. And even if we did wear the same pair of slacks and top last week, so what? The way we've put it on today and the way it feels today, and how we're interacting with the weather and our lives, it's always different. It may be similar components or even the same components, but how they're put together and the circumstances, that's up to us. So we can actually do a lot more than we think. And if I'm noticing, okay, well, just how is it that I'm creative? How is it? Well, just look around in your day and notice how you're doing things. Nobody's sitting not doing anything for extremely long periods of time, unless they're sleeping, right?
Yeah.
But if you just notice how many things are happening that you're doing and you're not thinking about it, that thinking about it is really one of the obstacles to allowing yourself to just play around. And creativity, a lot of that is playing around, coming up with a new solution, putting things together, rearranging things, taking things apart, seeing what happens if you make a mess. Okay, well, then what? And not
Yeah.
stopping. I think not stopping is a third component to allowing ourselves to be creative, because sometimes, and I know this for myself, especially if I'm painting, but sometimes when I'm writing too, if I do something and think, oh, that's really ugly, ugh, there's no hope for that. If I stop there, then I might as well just pack up and go home. But if I'm willing to say, okay, so it's ugly or it's unreadable or it makes no sense, whatever it is, and just push it a little farther. So what happens next? No, what happens now? What if I do this? Then something always emerges. But if we quit when it looks impossible, then we aren't being very creative. It's only when we keep pushing it that we start finding new things.
Yeah, isn't that just beautiful? I just love that. And it's so true, isn't it? How it, well, it's our intellect, isn't it? Just kind of steals the creativity away. You know, how we can just be in the flow and okay, things might not be going quite right, but it's like we have a little paddy upstairs and we throw all the toys out the pram and it's like, no, I'm not playing this anymore, and that's it, you know. But if
Yes.
we're just willing to just see it for what it is, like, okay, we're just having a little bit of an upstairs meltdown, but if we can just hang in there, something fresh will come up.
Yes, that happens. I've never had that not happen. And sometimes I'll have to walk away from something,
Yeah.
which is fine. And then come back. When I come back to it, I can see it with a little better perspective. And if I had a lot of thoughts in my head about it not going the way I want, if I just notice that that's just thoughts are fine. They don't mean anything until I have an opinion about them, right? So,
Yeah.
so if my head is saying, "Oh, that you can't fix that. That's really bad," I don't have to take that as truth. I don't have to believe that, and I can just say, "Oh, fine. Thanks for sharing in there," and then just do something. Being in action is really what propels the creative process. Otherwise, it's just you're all in your head or you're not anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I suppose really you're rerunning all of other people's opinions about you, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, that's what's coming to me. It's like as soon as we go up in our head, then all we're doing is listening to all of that old historical opinion and thought
Yeah.
and belief, and we're not in the moment anymore. We're back in, you know, when we were 6 years old being told to, you know, put the paints away because you're no good at that.
Right. Right.
And we can really easily go there, can't we? You know, when we become discouraged or disheartened about something, we can, it's really
Right.
easy to run all of that.
Yeah. And don't you think that's just habit?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Which means it's possible to stop doing it. I was
Yeah.
just watching years ago, there was a comedian named Bob Newhart, American comedian, and he had a show on television where he played a counselor, a therapist. And there's a very famous episode of his where he has a client come in, and his solution to all of her problems, and the primary one being that she was terrified that she was going to be buried alive in a box. So his contribution to get her to be rid of this phobia was just stop it. Just stop. Every time she would say, well, what about, no, we don't go there. We don't go into your past. Just stop it. And he says this to her about 6 times in a row. But I was just also reading that there is so much research that says that the best way to stop obsessing about something is to start thinking about something else.
Yeah.
And it sounds really simple. And we have been taught to keep gnawing at our thoughts like a dog with a bone, when actually it's so much simpler if we just say, okay, fine, I got stuff to do. And
Yeah.
focus, whether it's take a walk, take a nap, have a cup of tea, get back to the keyboard, whatever it is. But it's like we don't really have to pay attention to it. Although we've been taught that we do. Oh, where's that thought coming from? I have to get rid of it. I have to be positive. No, just shift gears. Even
Yeah.
shifting gears is a creative act.
Yeah.
It's moving off of square one.
Yeah. No, I really like that. You know, that it's a creative act to just go do something different. To just
Absolutely.
notice the thinking that you're doing and notice that, well, it doesn't mean anything. You know, okay, so we've got this thought that comes around like the number 10 bus every, you know, 10 minutes or so, but hey, so what? It wants to occupy my brain for a little bit today. Okay, no, that's fine.
Right. I'm just looking at the, are those photographs or drawings behind you? Just the way you've hung them is creative.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
an
I
arrangement.
thought
It's
of
a
that.
rearrangement. It's something that you've looked at and you've made choices about
Yeah.
how they're going to appear, where they're going to appear. Same with creativity. It's about making choices.
Yeah. Well, there is a reason that they're hung in that way. It was because I didn't think I'd be able to get them square. So, and it would annoy me. So I off-centered them. But that in itself is creative because it was solving a problem.
That's right.
You know, I didn't think I'd be able to get 4 in a row and it'd be all nice and neat. And so I just put it off center. But even that, and it's good to notice that, isn't it? That every time we solve a problem, we're being creative. And oh my goodness me, how many problems have we had to solve over the last 6 months that we never thought we'd have to solve? You know?
Yeah, that's right. Everything that we come up with is a response, to something. And every response has the potential for being creative, something fresh, something different. What if I tweak this? What if I hold it differently? What if I look at it upside down? You know, rather than doing what you were saying earlier, which is, oh, I can't do this forever. But it really just means in this moment. But it doesn't mean any more than that. And once we see that, I think that's incredibly empowering.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's almost like we just hold on to that thought, don't we? I can't do that. It's like we stop the traffic of thoughts and we just stay there. You know, and we do feel that kind of resistance inside, don't we? Almost like the traffic light kind of building up. You know,
Yeah.
but when we start to see that, oh, okay, I just had a can't do it thought, that's all.
Yeah. That's right. And being willing to say, so what?
Yeah, it doesn't mean I can.
No.
It just means I've had a I can't do it thought. That's it.
Yeah. And that's pretty simple, unless it means something so important to us that we need to keep holding it in our heads, you know, and turning it over and defining ourselves that way. So I think it's occurring to me now, just as we're talking, that creativity has this whole, this association of a certain kind of a person, and somebody who is willing to take risks and stand on their own and suffer, and because artists all suffer, right? But what if creativity is actually about having fun?
Yeah.
And messing around? And don't we all need to play more and just mess around more? And then
Yeah.
we can call that work.
Oh wow, wouldn't that be incredible? But if you look at kids, when you said that, I just thought, well, we all messed about, didn't we, when we were kids?
Yeah.
Like we all messed about. We all had fun. We all, you know, I don't know, played in sandpits and built towers and played with Play-Doh, got covered in paint and goodness knows what.
Yeah.
We all did that. I mean, I know I did with my 3 when they were really little.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
learning. I think you're right. I think it's a lot about learning to follow your own impulses.
yeah.
That's such a big deterrent to what we're calling creativity. And I think another definition for creativity is just willingness to try something.
Yeah.
Try it a little differently.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to mean, you know, we put so many serious meanings on who I am and what I'm capable of when we don't really even know. We're so much more than our personality or our work or our family. Those are more on the surface, but who we are in terms of our potential to explore and to have fun and to make stuff that either has some big impact or not, just for the sheer delight of it.
Yeah. 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 that's so impactful, isn't it? When you start to see that you're just so much more than you think.
Yeah. And it's not that hard to find out, begin to find out,
Mm. Yeah, when you were talking, what was occurring to me was how creativity isn't what we think it is.
Yeah.
You know, how we think it's this definition. And then we look at the definition and we say, no, that's not me. But
Yeah.
what if we're just creativity? Like we are creative beings, just being ourselves, we're being creative. And who that is so much broader, as you say, than this little tiny idea that we have of what creativity is. It's like we learn not to be creative in some way, you know. We
It
kind of
would
give
be pretty hard to be totally not creative.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, even if something as simple as having to rearrange your diary because you've got cancellations and other people who want to talk to you. So you're scheduling things and you're deleting some and you're adding others. That's creative. Well, when can I talk? Or can I fit this in here? Can I do that? Will I have time for this? It's all the same process.
Yeah.
Taking things apart, rearranging them, see what else can happen. Don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like we just don't recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what I mean by we unlearn it, or we learn a different definition, because we don't see creativity. We don't see that we've brought a report into being, or we've written an email into being, or, you know, last week I had to do lots of documents relating to COVID, you know, but I brought them into being. You know, there was an element of creativity in that.
Yeah.
Not in terms of, you know, I wasn't making it up or anything, but, you know, I had to bring it to life. And we do that all the time in our business, you know, whether it's like we're doing like a freebie, or whether we're putting a workshop together, or maybe we're, you know, putting Facebook posts together, we're writing Facebook posts, or doing a Canva picture, or whatever it is. We're using that wonderful gift. So yeah, I love that approach. I love it. I love looking at it a lot broader than what we think it is.
Yeah. Creation is part of creativity. It doesn't say it has to be artistic.
No.
It doesn't have to be musical. It doesn't have to be anything other than just the sheer making something, bringing it into existence, rearranging the pieces like a puzzle, and seeing what shows up. It happens the more we see it in our lives, what socks am I going to wear with these shoes? You know, what top am I going to wear? There's just so many things when you realize that choosing ideas and focus, which ideas you're going to focus on, and you're going to explore, and you're going to take apart and then put together again. All of that, our minds really are very creative. It's just which materials we're deciding to be creative with.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I was thinking as well, you know, in like a business sense, surely, well, I probably know the answer to this. The more we look in that direction, the impact that it has on our own businesses, when we start to notice how much more creative we are. I mean, have you noticed, like in your business or in those that you've worked with, the impact of knowing how creative we are, how much of an impact that has?
You know, that's a wonderful place to look, because I think what happens is, what I've seen with the people that I work with, and I notice for myself, is that the more I see what I can mess around with, the freer it allows me to be. And that's been true of people that I work with, clients, and other people that I have conversations with, is it recognizing that we put way too much emphasis on how the final product is going to look, but just allowing ourselves to be free to screw it up, make a mess, let it be. It doesn't mean anything, but we have so much conditioning about how it's supposed to look the first time around. It's got to be perfect the first time around. And nothing is perfect the first time around, or very rarely. Maybe a cup of tea, but not every single time.
Yeah, no, that's
You
true.
know?
That's true. And isn't that interesting, because that really is another block to that part of our system working, isn't it? That we have this fixed idea about how something should look, and then we kind of point all our efforts towards that.
Yeah.
And when we start to notice that, oh, actually we have this kind of deeper intelligence with fresh thought, and this, things will just occur to us, and when we allow ourselves to be freer to allow them to unfold, and grow and evolve and change, and noticing that we can go along with that and adapt and change, and we're problem solvers, and we get solutions and all sorts of things. I mean, that's like, realizing you have an extra 3 gears in your car, isn't it? As far as I can see.
Yeah. I think it lightens it up a lot to realize that it's not a skill that we have to acquire so much as it is a skill that the more we use it, the more we see it in action.
Yeah, totally.
So,
No, I love that. And I think then it becomes a little addictive, doesn't it? Because the more we see it in action, the more we allow it to be in action.
yes.
Because it's just such a far more richer way to grow our business, and just to simply be.
Yeah. There's an aliveness to it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
everybody's attracted to that kind of aliveness. And even, other people that we're interacting with, but also with our own selves. We see we can do something, or something is coming through us. Like, oh, well, what else could come through? What else could I play with? What else could I find to rearrange, to just take a crack at it and see what it would be like if I messed around with it?
Yeah, isn't that true though? And I love when you said it about how much more alive it is when we just go with it, because so often we'll get a little caught in our heads, and then we're just trying to reproduce what we did before.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of stuff, isn't there, in business about, well, just keep repeating what you're doing. If it worked once, then just keep doing it. And I've noticed that, in my business, that sometimes I'll have something and I'll just think, well, I just need to do that again. And I forget that I have this creativity that actually is alive and relevant and in the moment, and that will just come up with something fresh. And that it's okay to come up with something fresh.
That's the way it works.
Because that's the way it works, yeah.
Yeah. You were making me think of, well, you weren't making me, but as you were speaking, I started to think of really good storytellers. And they start down a path as they're telling their story, and you pretty much know where they're going. And then somehow they take a left turn, and they're telling something that's way out in left field, and you think, how in the world are they ever going to get back to the main point of the story? Somehow they do. And really great storytellers, it's such a delight to watch them, because they don't even know what's going to come out of their mouths. They're pointing themselves hopefully in a direction, but what comes out, they're waiting too. They're going to be astonished just as much as we are with it. And I think that's part of the joy of using creativity, however, to whatever degree that you can, and that you're willing to play with it, is that you do feel this kind of excitement, like what's going to happen next? Or if something always occurs at some point, then why are we worried about it? Unless we think there's some deadline, and there may be an honest deadline to what we have to do, but to realize that we have so much so many inner reserves to tap. And I think you can only notice that by doing something and seeing how that emerges. And then you get more confident. Oh, well, I can do that. So maybe I could do this. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Totally. And I love that, that whole kind of just going with it, and it just kind of comes out. I mean, we haven't scripted this conversation, and yet we've created a conversation. It's like it's just kind of come out.
Right.
We didn't know what direction we were going to take, and we pointed in a general direction, and the rest has just happened really naturally. And to notice that that capacity is available to everyone, it's so empowering, isn't it? I think, because we get so limited up here, and so to notice that, oh, actually I can rest in this deeper knowing that it will just happen, it will just unfold, it will happen in the way that it's meant to, and I'll figure it out when it happens.
I think that that's such a good way of looking at it, because so many times we struggle to make something happen, and we get stuck, because it's just not happening. And oftentimes that, at least in my experience, comes when I try to repeat something that worked before and doesn't necessarily relate to what's going on now, or the circumstances around me, or even my own state of mind. So if I'm trying to recreate the past in the present, it's not always relevant, and it's not always helpful. So to know that we have this capacity for newness, I think, is so important in counteracting our tendency to overthink things and to push things. Because if I know, I mean, so many times we get caught up in our thoughts, and then we're stuck in this little whirlpool. We just keep going around with our thoughts, because we've been taught that we need to analyze our thinking and come up with solutions. But I think that that's going to the wrong source for an answer. Because if we know that we have this untapped potential, never going to go anywhere. It's just waiting for us to open the door and start opening the boxes and start playing with what we find. That can give us enough of a motivation to leave the thinking behind. I guess we're coming around full circle to what we started talking about earlier today.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just lovely, isn't it? But isn't it really useful to notice all of that?
Yeah. The more we notice it, I think the more empowering it is.
And especially, as you were saying earlier about deadlines, because I think sometimes we think, oh, well, if I've got all the time in the world, then this applies. But if I've got a deadline of next Friday, then it doesn't apply. And I have to go up in my head, and I have to rerun all of those patterns and all those ideas and that beliefs that I had, because, well, that's what I do when I have a deadline. And as you say, when we notice that this deeper reserve is really relevant, and it's alive and in the moment, and we can notice that, oh, actually I'm going in the whirlpool, I'm kind of off track.
And that's pretty easy to spot because of the feeling that it produces.
Oh yeah, because it feels like we're in a whirlpool, right? It really does. And that's just, that's just so powerful to notice that.
Do you have any examples of things that clients that you work with get stuck with in the so-called arena of creativity?
Well, I think in my experience, the first point is I'm not creative. Like, I'm just not creative at all. I can't come up with ideas for my business. I don't know what direction to go in. My job isn't creative. I can't bring creativity into my world. It's like we kind of checked out of creativity. And And it's like you were saying earlier, enabling somebody to see even the little parts of their lives where they're being creative, the solutions that they've come up with to navigate the different issues that they have in their life, whether it's, how do I get 3 kids in the car, without one of them getting undressed before 8:30, silly things like that, all through to writing reports or putting funding bids together or putting a program together, and really noticing what lies behind the system, that what's creating all of that, what's the source of all of that.
Yeah. It really is interesting how frequently we say, I can't or I'm not. But how would we know in that moment whether what we're saying is even true unless we attempted it?
Absolutely. I mean, what an absolutely gorgeous thing to notice, that we might have been something at one point in our lives, so that doesn't mean we're necessarily that now.
Yeah.
It was just a thought that we had years ago that we've been carrying for years.
Yeah. And don't you think that sometimes when people say they're not creative, all it really means is they don't have enough information yet to do something. And the reason I'm suggesting that is because, you were talking about, people saying, clients saying, I don't know what to do for my business, or I don't know how to do this or do that. It's usually because we don't have enough information, so that we can't make a decision as to what to do.
Yeah.
We just don't know yet, but it doesn't mean we'll never know. And
Yeah.
I think that's going back to an earlier point that we were talking about is, oh, I can't do this. And we think it means forever. I'm never going to be able to that. Now, where in the world does that come from?
I've no
Because
idea. Yeah. That is so true, isn't it? That is
it's
so.
funny. I can't do that yet.
Mm. And I wonder, not that it's important, but I wonder whether, especially in the field of business, it is because we've been invited to accept the idea as a truth that we have a goal and then we work out all the steps to get to that goal. And so then we become fixated on, well, what am I doing? What are the steps? What do I have to do? What do I have in place? Because I can't achieve this until I know. And well, that just sucks the life out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's really an excellent point, needing to know.
Mm. Whereas, well, we do know. We know that we will know when we need to know.
That's right.
You
And if
know,
we don't have information, well, we can Google it.
what is that? Yeah,
We
well,
can.
for everything else is Google. Almost like the divine intelligence, but not quite.
Oh, well, I wouldn't call it divine exactly, but it's a good metaphor.
It is. It is. But what's kind of coming to me is that perhaps that's one of the main kind of stops that we put on creativity, our obsession with needing to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we allow ourselves just to show up, go, yeah, whatever, let's just see how this rolls. We're going in this general direction like the storyteller, but who knows
Yeah.
where the journey will take us.
Right.
That's really creative, isn't it?
It makes a huge difference to be willing to say, I don't need to know, and I don't have to worry about what other people are going to think about it. But right now, I'm just going to mess with it and see what happens.
Yeah, just like the 4-year-old that kind of resides in
Yeah.
all of us.
Yes. And isn't it more fun to be around people who are just lighter in their approach? Like, oh, let's just try this. Let's try that. Let's see what happens here. Not this, I got to get it right. I have to make it happen. I have to do all these things. And without realizing there's something that's doing it for us if we just get out of the way.
Yeah.
Ideas come from this endless well of ideas.
And that in itself is so empowering to know that it's not on us to work it out, that we do have within all of us this endless source of ideas and solutions and workarounds
Yeah,
and things
and
are
it's
just,
not necessarily a straight line. I think that's another really important component, is that it's not like a mathematical equation.
yeah.
It's not
Well,
necessarily a straight line.
yeah, or maybe it's just the line that it needs to be, and not the line we imagine it should be.
Right.
Because isn't that the truth? When you look back, over your life, it's like, oh yeah, that line makes sense. But at the time, maybe we wanted a different line.
Yes.
And would that not be the case for business as well? And
Oh,
ordinary things that
absolutely.
we do from day to day as well?
Yeah. Some things do have deadlines. Clearly, there's no getting around that. But even within that, how we approach a deadline, how we approach the project,
Mm.
as something that is a process rather than simply in order to get to a certain end goal. There's so much more to doing anything when we take off the consequence and we just start really getting into it. That's when flow happens, where you forget what time it is and you just see an idea coming into your mind, and you see that if you start coaxing it and encouraging it, that something comes out that's never exactly what you had in mind initially, but it's better because it's got more to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Well, it's like we were saying about there being this kind of infinite well of creativity and everything, and as soon as we kind of try to work out, and we've got this deadline and we've got to push it and we've got to do this and we've got to do that, it's like putting a cap on the well, isn't it?
Oh, what great way to put it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And as you say, when we're just in that flow and we forget the time, we forget the deadline, we forget the consequences, we forget the what ifs, we allow all of that to pass, then that flow, that well of endless creativity can just come to the floor
Yeah.
and tap it so much more.
And it isn't always that the result that we get is going to be something that the whole world is going to bow down at our feet about. It can be something that needs a revision or another revision or a third revision, but there's a process to it. And I've heard several different variations of this, but oftentimes what we produce is not yet up to our own expectations. But that's as it should be, because if we're working on something, developing something, putting something together, it has an evolutionary process.
Mm.
So I know it's very easy to get discouraged if we do something, we think, oh, this is creative, but it still stinks. But that's fine, because that's not the end.
Yeah.
There's
And
still
what
more
if
to
it's
go.
Yeah, and what if it's just how it needs to be right then in that moment?
Yeah.
What if you've produced a report that you think, oh, actually, I think there needs to be some more work on that, but this is what I've got. But actually, then that produces so much more creativity in other people, and their contributions are really valuable.
Yes.
And I think the more we let go of ideas of how things should be, it enables that creativity to just be what it needs to be in that moment.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's an ongoing process. It will just continue to evolve at a time that's right for it.
Yeah. Everything takes, like, nobody picks up a paintbrush thinking that their first painting is going to be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
There's not, you just know there's a process, learning how to hold the brush, what brushes are appropriate, watercolor, acrylic, oil, whatever you're playing with. There's the facility gets developed.
Yeah.
And that in itself is creation. It's something coming into being, into existence.
Mm.
So creativity doesn't have, to me, it doesn't have to come, it doesn't very often come in an artistic form, but
Yeah.
all of the components of creating a report, writing an email, dealing with employees, or even just dealing with your own personal life, it
Yeah.
can be much lighter.
Yeah.
And I think especially now with this pandemic that we're all living through, is that the lighter we have our touch on what we do, the better it's going to be, because so many people feel like they have to hunker down and just close down now and just do only what needs to be done. And that sense of lack doesn't have to be there. Aside from taking healthy precautions,
Mm.
then we have the rest of our lives, which is, our precautions are here, but the rest of our life is, we don't have to wear a mask for the rest of the aspects of our lives. You know what I'm
Yeah, no,
saying?
it's true. Yeah, I do. We don't have to be restricted in every single sense.
Right.
Because we wear a mask to go shopping doesn't mean we have to wear a mask everywhere,
Right.
running a business or, in a
Psychologically,
metaphor.
right.
Yeah, like a psychological mask. No, absolutely not. And I think as well, whenever we point in the direction of solution or workaround, or we come up with something, don't we? Things occur to us. We are so innately creative in that way as human beings. That we solve problems that we don't even exist. It's like, that we haven't even thought of yet. We're going to come up with those solutions too. Because
Yeah.
that's the nature of who we are. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have so much potential,
Mm.
and to limit it is such a disservice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or to
So,
think we have to do it all on our own.
mm.
I have to slog it out here and I have to make this happen. But that's a lot of extra pressure when we realize the lighter our touch, the more space there is for some new idea to come through. Oh, do it that way. Oh, right. I could
Yeah.
try that.
Yeah. Isn't that so true? Isn't that so true? We just need to create that space, allow
Yeah,
that space to happen, not focus
right.
there, which is where we started, wasn't it? Not paying attention to all the ideas and beliefs that we have about ourselves, and stop digging around in that old box of out of date ideas for a solution that we need for the now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, yeah, that's so lovely. Nina, thank you so much. Sorry, did you want to add something? I cut you.
Oh, no, I just think what you're saying is so relevant, is that when we see that our creativity is so often dependent on not thinking, not figuring it out, but allowing it.
Yeah. Like it's not on us at all.
Right, right. It'll come to us. Or even if we have to do something like watch a movie or read a book before we can actually get to it, that in a way can be very creative in and of itself, because it allows our brains to reset,
Yeah,
get a fresh perspective.
yeah, yeah, totally. Well, and then we're not paying attention to the old stuff, are we?
That's right.
And creating the space.
That's it.
It's so simple. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. It's been lovely to talk
Oh,
about
thank you.
all of this with you. I think we could have talked like all of my evening, all of your afternoon. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful subject, isn't it?
Oh, really, it is.
Yeah.
It's endlessly creative in and of
Endlessly
itself.
creative. Yeah. But thank you so much.
A
And
pleasure.
and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.